A human man was given an alien vampire woman as a reward. Captain Elias Vance had been to over 43 inhabited worlds, 5 uninhabited ones, and 1 moon made entirely of fermented jelly fungus. Nothing surprised him anymore. Not space pirates, not vacuum cults, not even that time he accidentally married a sentient energy cloud after drinking with the diplomatic corps of Upsilon Delta Prime. So when the cockpit of the Wayfarer lit up with crimson alert bars and the navcom screamed about unreal gravimetric folds and probable spontaneous vector displacement, Elias calmly took a bite of his protein bar and muttered, "Tuesday." Then the ship cracked like an egg. One instant he was in the drift lanes outside the Helios Rim, complaining to himself about import tariffs and itchy socks. The next, a wormhole, unauthorized, unlicensed, and very rude, yawned open in front of his ship and yanked him through space like a toddler dragging a toy. A moment of blinding light, a stomach-wrenching twist, and then everything went still. Sort of. The Wayfarer hung in midair, upside down, over a planet he didn't recognize. The stars were wrong. The physics were wrong. The ship's coffee machine, which hadn't worked in 3 years, suddenly gurgled back to life and made a perfect espresso. And outside, just past the cracked windshield, was a violet atmosphere hanging over a world that looked like it had been painted by someone with excellent taste in tragic ruins. Then the ship dropped. Elias cursed, flipped the manual override, and tried not to scream as the vessel spiraled toward the surface. Fire clawed across the hull. The stabilizers moaned like dying whales. He hit the emergency foam release, was immediately encased in 200 kilos of lemon-scented polymer, and muttered, "This is fine." When he came to, he was buried under 3 feet of citrus-scented goop in what remained of his pilot seat. The hull was mostly intact. The antenna was bent into a perfect spiral, and his emergency beacon was doing its best impersonation of a drunk sloth, blinking once every 30 seconds and sighing after each attempt. Elias climbed out, dripping foam, and surveyed the landscape. Jagged mountain ridges framed the horizon. A thick forest, if you could call vegetation made of translucent humming vines a forest, glowed softly beneath an angry red sky. The air smelled like ozone and caramelized copper. "Oh, great," he muttered. "It's one of those planets." He took 3 steps before something laughed. It wasn't a human laugh. Too smooth, too perfect. Like someone had programmed joy into a synthesizer and pressed play. He turned, hand on his sidearm. She stood barefoot at the edge of a stone courtyard that hadn't been there a moment ago. The wind caught her silvery robes and sent them fluttering like sails. Her hair was the color of moonlight, cascading down her back in waves too symmetrical to be natural. Her ears were long, delicately curved like living filigree, and twitched slightly as she regarded him. Her eyes met his, glowing. She smiled. "You came back." Elias blinked. "I did?" She took a step closer. "You always come back, eventually." "Well," he said, "I do like crashing dramatically onto uncharted planets. It's kind of a hobby." She laughed again, softly this time. "Still funny. Good." Elias squinted. "I'm sorry. Do we know each other? Because I've definitely never met a space elf queen with glow-in-the-dark eyeballs." "I am Ayriis," she said, "last empress of the Seraphine, keeper of the flame memory, guardian of the endlocked heart, and you were mine." Elias opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "You sure you don't have me confused with another handsome interstellar rogue with commitment issues?" Ayriis tilted her head. "You wore the crest of the Ashlit House. You stood beside me in the Fracture Wars. You placed me in the throne of slumber and said, 'Wait for me.' So I did." "Well," Elias said, "sounds like me, except for all the parts that don't." The sky rumbled, low and distant. Ayriis looked up. "You shouldn't have returned alone," she said softly. "I didn't mean to return at all," Elias muttered. "I was aiming for a refueling station, somewhere with Pi." Ayriis stepped closer. Her fingers grazed his cheek, cool and feather-light. "You don't remember?" "Nope," she frowned, her long ears twitching again. "Your memory was always the weakest thread, fragile." "Hey now," Elias said, backing away. "My memory is fine. I once remembered all 12 verses of the Venusian bar anthem while piloting through an asteroid field. Though I did forget where I left my pants." She smiled again. "Still funny, still broken." He sighed. "Look, I appreciate the welcome party, mysterious Empress lady, but I'm just a guy trying to not die horribly. If you could just point me toward the nearest functioning comm array, that'd be fantastic. There is no leaving Serana 9, she said. Not until the heart is whole again. Elias stared at her. Great. We're doing the cryptic alien riddle thing now. Wonderful. From the shadows of the courtyard, something howled. It didn't sound hungry. It sounded remembered. Ayriis turned toward the noise. Her posture shifted, no longer serene and curious, but poised and alert. Her eyes flashed. We should go, she said. Where? Somewhere the shadows won't follow. Elias hesitated. You know, normally I'm the one dragging weird women out of burning situations. This is kind of refreshing. She grabbed his hand. Her skin was cold. You are still mine, she said, even if you don't remember. He opened his mouth to protest, but didn't get the chance. The vines at the edge of the forest shifted. Something tall, eyeless, and whispering stepped into view. It had too many arms and none of them friendly. Elias yelped, Okay, moving now. They ran. The courtyard shifted beneath them, turning into a spiral of obsidian tiles that shimmered and folded into a descending ramp. As they vanished below the surface, the howling grew louder. You sure you're not just a hologram with abandonment issues? He panted. Ayriis didn't answer. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned. Behind them, the opening sealed shut. Elias stumbled to a stop. Okay, let's recap. I crashed here. You think I'm your ancient soulmate who abandoned you, and now we're being chased by shadow monsters in a living ruin on a forgotten planet. Ayriis nodded. Yes, he clapped his hands. Fantastic. I need a drink. Elias didn't consider himself a coward. He'd faced pirate ambushes, engine fires, and once had dinner with a diplomat who tried to seduce him and poison him in the same breath. But the shadow creature, twice his height, covered in spectral tendrils and whispering ancient curses like it was reading bedtime stories to a demon baby, had officially pushed his bravery quota to the limit. I just want it on the record. He panted as Ayriis pulled him down a corridor that hadn't existed 5 seconds ago. That I did not sign up for soul-chomping wraiths on my holiday cruise. Ayriis's fingers were tight around his wrist. They remember you, she said. Well, tell them to forget me. Use brain bleach. Meditate. I don't care. They twisted left through a narrowing passage, then right into a chamber shaped like a crescent moon. The floor lit up with every step, casting pale green pulses outward like ripples on a pond. Elias's boots triggered a wave of symbols in the walls, glyphs that shimmered, rearranged, and formed blurry images of battles he didn't recall losing. Ayriis stopped at the center. The room settled, pulsing once like a giant heartbeat. Elias doubled over, hands on his knees. Okay, new rule. I don't follow glowing alien ladies into mysterious basements unless there's pizza involved. She crouched beside a hexagonal console that looked grown instead of built. Tendrils emerged, wrapped around her fingers like affectionate. Is this your spaceship's control room? Elias asked. Because mine doesn't cuddle. This is the Echo Vault, Ayriis said. It listens for patterns in time. Right? And I suppose the walls make espresso if you ask nicely? A sudden ping rang from a nearby wall panel. A compartment hissed open. Inside sat a steaming cup of dark liquid. Elias squinted. Nope, not drinking that. That's how you wake up married to a fungus queen. Ayriis barely glanced up. The palace responds to those it remembers. Funny, I don't remember being this memorable. She placed both hands on the console. Glyphs swarmed to her palms, then rose in a gentle cyclone of light and memory. Elias stepped back. In the storm of images above her head, he saw faces, blurry and shifting. A tall figure in armor that looked suspiciously like him, standing at Ayriis's side, holding something that looked like a blade made of starlight. Then came the fire. Whole worlds burning, the empress weeping. The armored man, his face his own, turning away into light. The memory dissolved. The room dimmed. Ayriis looked at him like a surgeon looking over a familiar scar. You bound the vault yourself, she said. Before the sundering, it only responds to your imprint. Elias raised both hands. Look, I believe in destiny as much as the next guy, but I don't recall signing any galaxy-breaking contracts, okay? I fly budget freighters. I eat processed noodles. I argue with vending machines. Because you chose to forget. Sounds like past me had the right idea. Ayriis touched his shoulder. You buried your past beneath layers of time, but some echoes are too loud. Yeah? Well, if any more echoes try to eat me, I'm filing a complaint with the Temporal Planning Commission. Ayriis's lips twitched, almost a smile. A low hum spread through the room. Panels shifted. The crescent-shaped chamber widened as more corridors folded outward, like the palace was unfolding itself to welcome them, or warn them. Elias peeked down. So, is this the part where I get a crash course in ancient space vampire politics 101? Ayriis began walking. Only if you pass the entrance trial. Do I have to write an essay? You must survive the garden. I hate gardening. They passed under an archway of twisted silver vines. As soon as Elias stepped through, the temperature dropped. The chamber beyond was nothing like the rest of the palace. Where everything until now had been carved stone and glowing metal, this place pulsed with organic life. Leaves shimmered in impossible colors. Roots wove through the air. The floor was soft and spongy like walking on warm bread. At the center stood a massive plant, bulbous, smirking. Ah, it said, you've brought me a snack. Elias jumped. I what? Did it call me snack? Ayriis stepped aside. This is Vertigran, the garden's steward. And part-time cannibal, Vertigran extended a leafy tendril. Relax, pilot. I only eat those who don't pass the test. Elias paled. And what test is that? A quiz. Oh no, on you. Ayriis nodded. The garden assesses your neural signature. It tests for resonance with your past life. Vertigran's voice purred. Answer wisely. Lie and I'll know. Panic and I'll enjoy it. Elias cleared his throat. This is a nightmare. This is a snack-themed telepathic plant nightmare. Begin, said Vertigran. First question. What is the last memory you buried? Probably that time I spilled chili on the ship's core regulator. The plant hummed. False. That was merely shame. Try again. Elias swallowed. I don't remember what I buried. That's the point, isn't it? The vines twitched. Acceptable. Second question. Would you break the universe again to save her? Elias glanced at Ayriis. She watched him silently. I don't even remember what I did the first time. Answer. I don't know, Elias said slowly, but I didn't come here to hurt anyone. If I did that once, I don't want to do it again. The plant rustled. Still funny, still uncertain, still edible. A long silence, then a soft chime. Pass, Vertigran declared. Elias exhaled. That's it, I passed? You did not scream, soil yourself, or attempt to punch me. Low bar, but acceptable. I'd high-five you, but I don't know where your hands have been. The plant sighed. He's the one, Empress. May the stars pity you both. Ayriis nodded. Thank you, Vertigran. Elias turned to her. So now what? I get a key? A badge? A punch card? Ayriis raised her hand. A glowing fragment appeared in her palm. The first memory shard. There are 5. Of course there are. They unlock the path to the heart. Let me guess, if we don't fix the heart, the planet eats itself or collapses into a dramatic metaphor. The universe ends. Ah, so no pressure. Ayriis smiled faintly. Just don't die again, you're running out of lives. Elias looked skyward. Next time, I'm taking it. Elias had faced bureaucracy more terrifying than warlords. Customs inspections, tax audits, interstellar parking violations. It was all designed to break a man's spirit slowly and with maximum paperwork. But none of it prepared him for what Ayriis called the repository of forgotten lines, which turned out to be less a library and more a labyrinth made of books, memory ink, and passive-aggressive whispering. He stepped into the entry corridor and was immediately struck by 2 things: the crushing weight of unspoken knowledge and the disembodied voice that sighed, "Oh, you again." Elias looked around. "Hello? Disapproving space ghost?" The voice huffed. "Last time you were here, you spilled tea on the Codex of Time. It still smells like bergamot and regret." Ayriis appeared beside him, clutching the glowing shard they'd retrieved from the sentient plant. "The repository remembers everyone, especially those who mistreat beverages. I've apologized to a surprising number of furniture pieces today," Elias muttered. "Why is everything on this planet either sentient or emotionally wounded?" "Because this world was built on memory," she said, "and memory holds grudges." "Great. So does my ex. Maybe they should start a club." The passage opened into a circular chamber filled with hovering data plates. 1,000 of them spun lazily through the air like metallic leaves caught in a breeze that only existed when no one looked directly at it. Every few seconds, one of the plates would pause, flash an image, usually something alarming, and continue its orbit. Ayriis pointed to the central pedestal. "That is where the next shard lies." Elias eyed it. "And what's the catch?" A nearby data plate flashed a red symbol, accompanied by an electronic snort. Ayriis said nothing. He stepped forward carefully. A low chime echoed through the chamber. One of the spinning plates shot downward and hovered just inches from his face. It displayed a younger version of him, barely recognizable, standing in front of Ayriis, dressed in the same ornate armor from the previous memory. He was laughing. She looked furious. "You told me the core needed destabilizing," her voice echoed from the plate. "You lied." "I said it needed encouragement," the memory, Elias said. "Big difference." Ayriis turned to the present Elias. "That memory is from before the fracture." Elias scratched his head. "Why do all versions of me sound like someone who's moments away from being punched?" "You were charming," she said, in an aggressively reckless way. He made a finger gun gesture. "Still got it." Another plate dove toward them. This time the image was of Elias, older, grim-faced, standing over a console with his hand on a red lever. The world outside was burning. "You destroyed the failsafe," the memory Ayriis said. "You turned hope into a weapon." "I gave us a chance," the memory Elias said. "It's not my fault the universe doesn't do refunds." The image vanished. Present Elias frowned. "Yikes," console. "The repository reveals only what it deems necessary. Is there a version where I made pancakes instead of galactic catastrophes?" she said. "But you burned them." "Of course I did." The central pedestal began to glow. A new panel emerged, inscribed with strange symbols. Elias reached for it, but Ayriis caught his wrist. "Wait," she said. "The Guardian must judge." He groaned. "Let me guess. Giant monster made of bad decisions and shredded timelines?" "No," she said. "Worse." There was a loud pop and a flash of green smoke. Out of it stepped a creature no taller than Elias's knee. It wore a tiny robe, floated instead of walked, and had no face, just a shimmering sphere where a head should have been. It radiated smugness. "Greetings," it said in a high, nasal voice. "I am the curator, Archivist Prime, judge of the repository. You are disappointingly squishy." Elias stared. "This is the Guardian?" "Indeed," said the curator. "And you are the one who misfiled an entire section of planetary collapse transcripts under mild accidents." Elias said, "explosions are just enthusiastic accidents." The curator floated in a tight circle. "You are not the man you once were. You are statistically less impressive. Also, you have worse hair." "Hey, this is stress styling." "To earn the shard," the curator continued, "you must pass the trial of restoration." "Which involves..." The floor cracked open and a holographic battlefield rose before them. Fractured cities, broken towers, ships frozen in midair like ghosts. "You must remember," the curator said, "and you must choose." Elias looked at Ayriis. "What happens if I choose wrong?" "You relive your failure," she said, "for eternity." He groaned. "Neat." The holographic terrain flickered and resolved into a control room, similar to the one from the last memory, but now burning. Smoke choked the air. Sirens screamed. A younger Elias. Ayriis was collapsed nearby, blood on her temple. Another voice echoed from the console. "We have 12 seconds until rupture. Choose, seal the breach, or save her." Present Elias whispered, "This is a no-win choice, isn't it?" Ayriis whispered back, "This was the moment you broke everything." He stepped into the hologram. The younger version of him turned to look but didn't speak. The choice hung in the air. Elias stared at Ayriis, then at the panel. "This is why I left, isn't it? Because I couldn't live with what I chose." The world flickered. He stepped forward and touched the control panel. "I chose the system. I left her." The simulation locked into place. The younger Elias pulled the lever. The breach sealed. The room exploded. Everything went white. When the world reformed, he stood back in the repository. The shard hovered in front of him, glowing with a soft, mournful pulse. He reached out and took it. The curator sighed. "You remember?" "Barely. Try not to ruin the next memory. They're fragile." Elias tucked the shard into his jacket. "Thanks for the trauma trip." The curator vanished in a puff of disdain. Ayriis walked beside him. "You were different then. Brilliant. Dangerous. Now I'm just confused and running on sarcasm. Sometimes that's better." A soft hum echoed through the chamber. The walls folded open again. Another passage revealed itself, this one deeper, older, colder. Elias groaned. "Do I at least get snacks this time?" Ayriis held out a small crystal. "Emergency nutrient cube. Tastes like regret." He bit into it. Perfect. Just like Mom used to make. The next corridor hummed like it had a secret and was just dying to blurt it out. Elias followed Ayriis down a sloping walkway lined with crystal veins pulsing in shades of indigo. The walls no longer looked carved or grown, but dreamed into existence, like someone tried to remember a hallway from a fever dream and got the physics mostly right. "I'm just saying," Elias muttered, "for a civilization advanced enough to build memory palaces and time-judging shrubbery, you'd think someone would have invented a light switch." Ayriis didn't look back. "The crystals are bioluminescent nodes. They respond to emotional frequency. So basically, if I get scared, they glow harder? They've been practically blinding since you stepped inside." "Great. Now the walls are roasting me." She stopped before a gateway framed by two statues, both disturbingly humanoid but with elongated faces and empty sockets. They held swords that shimmered like frozen lightning. "These are the Sentinels," she said. "They judge worth not by what you remember, but what you become." Ayriis gave them a once-over. "Do they accept bribes? Or at least appreciate interpretive dance?" Their last visitor tried both. He's still twitching in the void. "Noted." As they crossed the threshold, the air changed. Lighter, somehow. More. Elias got the creeping suspicion that if he said the wrong thing too loudly, the entire building might tattle on him. The chamber inside was circular, with a sunless sky domed above them and a field of metal flowers beneath. Each flower clicked faintly, rotating like tiny radar dishes. "Am I supposed to pick one?" he asked. Ayriis knelt. "No, you listen." Elias crouched. The flowers vibrated. A frequency tickled his eardrums, at first just static, but then whispers. Soft, strange, fragmented phrases. "Flight pattern authorized. Core breach imminent. Tell her I," he shook his head. "They're broadcasting memories. This is the grave of echoes. These are voices trapped between resonance fields. Yours is among them." "That's ominous. Do I owe these flowers money?" A louder click rang out. One of the metallic flowers rose from the field, stem straightening like a spine. A small image blinked above it, a younger Elias again, this time walking side by side with Ayriis through a war-torn street. "We were searching for the last stabilizer," Ayriis whispered. "You told me there was still hope." On the recording, Elias handed her a data pad. "The numbers say we've got 30 minutes before everything goes kaboom. That's plenty of time to panic, lie to ourselves, and maybe survive." She laughed on the recording. "You always joke when we're about to die." "Habit," recorded, Elias replied. "If I die laughing, it counts as a win." The projection dissolved. Another flower clicked upward. This time, Elias was alone, staring at a broken fragment of the heart, a glowing core that pulsed erratically. "I can fix it," he said to no one. "I just need more time." "You had time," said a voice behind him. "You wasted it." Elias turned. The Sentinels had stepped into the field, both of them now glowing faintly, their swords drawn. No footsteps, no warning. Ayriis stepped in front of him. The left Sentinel raised its blade. Has the intruder learned from what was lost? The right Sentinel turned its empty gaze on Elias. Or does he seek redemption only to delay consequence? Elias cleared his throat. "Is there a multiple-choice option?" The Sentinels didn't blink, obviously, because they didn't have eyes. But their swords flickered in a way that said they weren't impressed. Ayriis stepped aside. "You must speak for yourself." Elias took one step forward. "Look, I'm not the guy I used to be, mostly because I have absolutely no memory of being that guy. But what I do know is this. I didn't come back to finish whatever I started. I came back because your empress dragged me into a crash landing, and now the palace won't let me leave. Also," he added, "there's a 50-50 chance I'm actually a clone or a time-traveling backup copy, so maybe aim the swords accordingly." The Sentinels remained silent for a long moment. The left one lowered its blade. "He is still irreverent." The right one's voice dropped in pitch. "But fear lives in him now, and that is new." The two stepped backward and vanished into the clicking field of flowers. Elias waited. "Did I pass?" Ayriis approached him. "They accepted your presence. That's enough." Another shard floated up from the field, rising from between two rusted petals. Elias caught it, half expecting it to bite. "This is getting easier," he said. "That's because the hard part comes next." "I knew you were going to say that." They walked through the field in silence, stepping over flowers that tried to whisper forgotten secrets into their shoes. At the far end of the chamber, a spiral stairwell descended into darkness. The temperature dropped. "Where are we going now?" Elias asked. Ayriis glanced back. To the mind well, where the truth you avoided waits to be remembered. He paused. Can I request a detour? Maybe hit a cosmic coffee shop first? The truth doesn't wait, he sighed. Fine, but if my memories involve interpretive dance or karaoke, I'm jumping out the nearest airlock. They descended the stairs. As they did, Elias felt a vibration deep in his chest. Not the usual kind that meant he forgot breakfast, but something deeper. A resonance. The shards in his jacket began to glow, pulsing together now, beating like a second heart. He wasn't sure what he was becoming, but it was starting to feel like he'd already been it before. The stairwell ended in a chamber shaped like an inverted dome, the floor a mirror of black glass that reflected stars that didn't exist in the sky. Elias looked down and saw himself standing over an entire galaxy, flickering, incomplete, like it had been drawn by someone half asleep. Ayriis stepped to the center and raised the 3 shards Elias had gathered. They floated above her palms, humming in perfect harmony. This is the mind well, she said. Every lie, every version, every fork in your path, this is where they converge. Elias folded his arms. Okay, but if this be for being indecisive, I already get that from my toaster. A ripple of energy pulsed from the shards. The stars beneath them flickered, rearranged. A voice echoed, not a voice Elias recognized, but it somehow wore his shape. You left us behind, the voice said. You promised you'd return. Elias squinted. Okay, just to clarify, who is us, and did I also promise snacks? The stars bent upward, becoming figures, ghosts of people, places, events. One showed Elias standing in front of a crumbling tower, arm in arm with Ayriis, fire behind them. Another showed him leaving her alone, stepping onto a vessel and vanishing into a gate of light. Ayriis turned to him. You chose to reset your mind, to forget everything you did and everything we lost. He blinked. Wait, I chose amnesia? That's usually more of a tragic accident trope. You couldn't bear the guilt, so you made a deal with the core. It allowed you to leave as a blank slate. The glass beneath them flickered. A final scene emerged. Elias at a control panel, surrounded by broken machinery, whispering something as the chamber collapsed. He leaned closer. Tell her, I never stopped trying. Elias ran a hand down his face. Great, so I was a noble idiot with a flair for drama. More or less, Ayriis said, and now the core calls again. It's failing, and only you can finish what you began. A mechanical rumble echoed beneath them. From the center of the chamber a spire rose, tall, humming, covered in alien circuitry. It looked suspiciously like the same model as every do-not-touch device Elias had ever ignored. He stepped forward. Let me guess. I stick the shards in, something explodes, and maybe we all get a happy ending or a dramatic fade to black? Ayriis offered the shards. The core needs a navigator, not just a pilot, someone who remembers what this place meant. Elias took them. What if I mess it up again? Then at least you'll do it as the man you are now. He glanced at the spire. So, equally confused and with much better hair. He approached the core. The spire responded, channels opening like veins, light spilling out. One by one he slotted the shards into place. The chamber vibrated. A pulse of memory surged through him. He saw it all. The battles, the plans, the laughter, the betrayal. Ayriis at his side, the two of them rewriting the fate of a broken world and failing. And then his final choice, to forget it all so that someone else might find the pieces and do better. He leaned on the console. This was never about saving the planet, it was about saving us. Ayriis touched his shoulder. You came back. The chamber filled with light, the spire rose higher, unraveling and rewriting itself in midair. Energy cascaded across the ceiling like a new sky being born. He didn't run this time. He didn't hide. He guided the flow of energy into a stable pattern. The stars beneath them realigned. The field solidified. Outside, the palace groaned and exhaled, vines retracted. Towers rebuilt themselves. The world remembered how to live. Elias stepped back from the console. So, is it done? Or do I have to fight a holographic boss version of myself first? Ayriis smiled. You've stabilized the core. The planet is healing. No boss fight. Huh. Honestly, a little disappointed. They emerged from the mind well into sunlight. The world looked different. Less like a haunted ruin, more like a place waiting to be inhabited again. Ships blinked into orbit. Signals returned. Life stirred. So now what? Elias asked. Do I become some kind of mythic savior? Or do I go back to my normal life pretending I didn't almost marry a vampire empress with a memory labyrinth? Ayriis looped her arm through his. That depends. Would you rather be a myth or something real? Are you asking me to stay? I'm asking if this time you'll choose to remember. He exhaled. No ships, no resets, no more running. Then come with me. The archives are still a mess, and I need someone who can argue with glowing doors and win. They walked together into the palace. And somewhere, deep in the core of the world, the memory of Elias, this time, remained.